Hello and welcome to the panel discussion on surviving tech careers, every techie's toolkit in the grand finale of world's largest coding battle, TechGig Code Gladiators 2021. I'm your host, Sukriti Aduvanshi. The world around us has changed drastically after the pandemic. In most organizations, IT has had to transform itself from a bunch of techies installing and troubleshooting equipment to a key enabler of business strategy and competitiveness. But what do all these changes mean for the typical IT employee? What skills should a techie be nurturing to enhance his or her career in the changing market? What opportunities should one consider? What is the survival toolkit? To know the mantra of survival, today we bring you some prominent names from the industry who will advise and guide you through your tech journey. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to have Ravi Srinivasan, Head Operations Transformation from Hexaware. Rakhi Deshpande, Director, Talent Acquisition, Zinnov. Sanju Laitonjam, Director and Global Head, Talent Acquisition, Zycus. Werner Huyssteen, General Manager, India, TomTom. And Ranjana Sagar, Global Head of Recruitment from ATTRA. Welcome and thank you for being a part of the discussion. I would request each one of you to introduce yourself and give me an opening remarks, please. So can you please quickly start with you, Ranjana?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here on this platform and to share my views. So I'm Ranjana and I have been in the industry for last 17 years. Last 8 years plus have been with ATTRA. ATTRA is a IT services and consulting organization headquartered from Melbourne, Australia, and is now part of Synchron, which acquired ATTRA very recently. I head the global talent acquisition for ATTRA and also very actively take part in their diversity and inclusion programs. So this platform definitely, I think, is a good platform for me to share my views in terms of what I have been working upon for some years now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ranjana. Rakhi?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure being here with such a good panel and my friends. And to introduce myself, I'm Rakhi Deshpande. I've been into talent acquisition, for quite some time now, and I've seen the talent scenario right from from large organizations like IBM to very boutique firms and startups to product companies, and now I'm looking at it from a consulting viewpoint at Zinnov. And I've seen the transition of the market, the demand that the market has. I think to introduce myself, I have mostly worked, and what has excited me is to work where I'm growing organizations, building teams, and seeing that people whom we hire are successful in the organization. So that's about it.
Thank you so much. Sanju, can we have the opening remarks, please?
Hi, Sukriti. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I think TechGig and Code Gladiator, has been helping organizations identify the top tech talent for many years. So, first of all, congratulations on being one of the top assessment and coding competitions in India today. A little about myself. I've been in the recruiting space for more than 17 years right now. I've worked with both services, offshore product development services and product companies. Today, I have the global talent acquisition for Zycus. We are a cloud software SaaS product company in e-procurement space. And I'm really looking forward to have a conversation with all the panelists here.
Thank you so much, Sanju, and thank you for the wonderful words. Werner, we'll move to you.
Thanks, Sukriti. Thanks for having me. I'm Werner from Huyssteen. I'm the general manager for TomTom in India. We've been around for many years, since the early 90s. TomTom is a location technology specialist. We focus in moving the world forward, in reducing emissions, reducing congestion, and ultimately getting people and families and people from A to B in the best possible way. We have large operations in Pune, where we build some of our high technology maps. We're a global yet independent map maker and very proud of our history. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to having a fruitful discussion with all the panelists.
Thank you so much, Werner. Ravi, can we have an opening remarks, please?
Thanks for having me on the panel. Again, Tech Gladiators is something that's close to Hexaware's heart because we've been a part of the journey and have also been pretty successful in that space. I have over 30 years all through in the development space, hardcore delivery guy. I've seen the transformation happen in technology and how things have, the lines have blurred between technology and the functional areas and the switch happening. Over the last 5 years, which I've been with Hexaware, last year we had a lot of management changes and we created a transformation of office, and I hit that completely. We are re-looking at how Hexaware will work as it grows beyond the billion, which should have happened last year. Unfortunately, with the COVID, we are sort of slightly delayed, and we would do that mark this year. So every organization does go through that for $1 billion and a $3 billion mark, and that's when your organizational transformation takes place, and that's what I run. Happy to be here and hope to have some insights from the other dimensions, just not from delivery, so that we can also learn from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. I think without any further ado, it's time for us to open the survival kit and let your advice and your expert opinions, pour in. So I'll quickly jump to the questions that I have for you. The first one that I have is, these days, having an alternative career, people are looking at it as a choice, right? So do you think that how can developers think of a career beyond coding? What are the things that they can look at? So Ravi, we'd like to start from you.
See, coding, as I said, 30 years. Coding is no more the 20,000 lines, 30,000 lines business anymore. Right? It's all about intelligent way of putting that in 5 lines. So if I have to write a 10,000 lines code, we just now do it in probably 20 lines, maybe 200 lines at most. So it's all about thinking very, very differently. And if you have to think differently, you need to understand business. So for me, a career in coding is no more about the code that you write, but it's about understanding your business and being able to interpret that into what the machine can understand. So life has to change, and the thinking of every coder has to change. They have to put themselves into the shoes of the business or the domain experts. I would even go beyond and say put yourselves into the business shoes and not just look at it from a domain perspective. And that is how the careers are going to change and are actually changing today. And my view would be think differently, look at it from a business perspective, and then drill down to a coding angle. So that's my first piece of
right. Yes, and to add on to that a little, since we are seeing technological innovation happening like almost every day these days, I think it's time for coders not only to limit themselves with just codes, but think and do things beyond that, and take up technological learnings which are up in the market and are trending, and maybe people are talking about it and you're doing certain kind of implementations, right? Werner, what do you have to add here?
Oh, that's a good point. So just for the record, I'm not from a coding background. I'm actually an accountant. But I run an office full of coders, and I understand it very well. And I will tie up to Ravi's point right away. I think the traditional coder starts as an individual contributor, works himself up in the organization, becomes an engineering manager, and runs teams. But I think we see many new dimensions to engineering positions as well. We see new positions coming up: data scientists, AI, ML specialists. Quantum computing. So there is a clear shift between the traditional way of coding, the traditional way of software engineering that we saw many years back to where we're going to today. But I want to piggyback on Ravi's point. I think it is imperative for all software engineers, everybody in the coding business, to understand what the business is doing as well, because it is a holistic growth across the organization that makes a company successful. Breaking down silos, understanding how to sell software, how to listen to what the customer wants is imperative for everybody in order to move forward.
Right. Thanks for that, Werner. Sanju, what would you want to add here?
I think business is changing. The business outlook is changing, and so are the careers that people can have in a technology organization. Today, I think organizations offer a lot more than just a software engineering career. For example, I think Werner and everybody would agree that today there's a lot of demand for product managers, right? Those who can come and shape up the product, and that's not a traditional, technology coding jobs. When we go to hire even fresh graduates and go to management schools and colleges, we not only look for them people who have got experience in engineering or software engineering, but I think business skills becomes more important in some of these roles. A lot of people inside organizations also move to marketing or sales or pre-sales, and I think there are opportunities inside, plenty of them. What is important, I think, is what Werner and Ravi rightly said. It's that understanding of business. If you're able to develop that business acumen, you're able to connect, and you have those skills, you can transition from a coding role to some other business focused roles, and that's something that's a lateral growth that I think all the organizations are offering these days.
Right, and that has to be a part and parcel of the entire recruitment process that has been into place, especially when we've started working remotely. Right, the entire digital transformation space is like has overtaken the industry, and everybody is into that domain. Ranjana and Rakhi, I will want both of you to answer this from a different perspective, because so we have had that point made up by Ravi, Werner and Sanju about the kind of business models. I would want you to address this from a career switch perspective. In the technology domain itself, how would you add to that? Rakhi, we can start from you.
Very interesting, and Sukriti, and this trend has been there for almost 2 years, right? If I'm not mistaken, since 2019, I started observing this trend in the market. Where coding was not going to be enough for a coder, right? To have build a good career in an organization. You can be a fantastic programmer, and you can be happy with it, but that's not going to be enough. So, from the talent acquisition perspective, if you ask me, like, earlier when we would go and hire an architect, the expectation was that he was a code king, would know multiple languages, would know multiple frameworks, would know multiple methodologies. Today, it doesn't stop there. Today, if I have to hire an architect, along with everything that a traditional architect used to do, they need to have better problem-solving skills in terms of business. Right, so they should be able to understand the business problems and be able to give a technology interpreted solution for such problems. And from there, we are seeing that this expectation is coming down right to the programmer level. Like Sanju said, how we evaluate even our freshers and campus hires has changed. Right, we don't just ask them a couple of questions and take them through a aptitude test and hire them. We want to know what they did more. We want to know how good are their programming skills, and we also want to know how good are their thinking skills, problem solving skills, understanding skills. So I think all of that is very, very relevant to the entire coding community today, because jobs are not, and it's already there, like, no job is going to be a single skill job now and in future. Even now, if you're just limited to one or two skills, you're going to fall behind. And these kind of people have been falling behind for almost an year and a half now. And we saw a lot of layoffs that were happening in 2019 beginning is because of this, because the whole talent ecosystem of the organization was going through a revamp. And this is the reason they were going through a revamp, because they wanted multi-skilled people. They wanted people who would understand more than their core area of coding, right? And as Ravi rightly said, the code number of the lines of code has really reduced. There's a lot of automation there. How does a coder then add value? Is by understanding the business and understanding what problems they have to solve, and then give a technical solution to it.
Absolutely, and I cannot agree more of what you've added, Rakhi, because unless and until you know the core of the problem, you cannot provide a solution to it, right? And for that, you need to have an analytical skill to understand what you're working on. Ranjana, your inputs here, please.
Sure. So I think I would really like to say that Rakhi rightly pointed out on the problem solving skills. So some of these skills are that we are looking apart from coding is, I think, communication. One big skill that we try and look right from the campus to senior software engineers to tech leads to architects is how that person is communicating. How is the collaboration skills? Is the person able to collaborate with the team and then definitely understands business? So these are the skills that one has to have in addition to the coding to actually look for a career beyond coding, and that's the need of the hour. So we would actually, I think around 5-6 years back, we would actually say that, okay, he has done really well in the coding test, he has really done well in the technical assessment, but you know what, he's not able to tell his story well. So it's okay, because after all, he has to sit and code. But I think the scenarios have changed so much right now, and the first thing that we do right now is a big section on language. So can that person speak English, right? So and can that person be strong enough with how to tell the story to the customer? So definitely, I think communication, collaboration, problem solving skills are the ones which we are looking at apart from coding. So that's
Thank
my
you.
thing.
That's a good point of conclusion for this question. Thank you so much for that, Ranjana. So Werner, I would want to start this answer with you. That how can techies actually catapult their career from tech domain to other domains? And since you just mentioned that you've made this entire switch in your career, I think you're the right person to start with for this.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I was thinking about that, and let's talk about domain to domain first within the tech industry. So generally, techies try to stick to their own domain throughout their career, and you don't see a shift from domain to domain that often. Although within TomTom, we work in the mapping domain, which is very different to banking or fintech, for instance. And we see quite many people making the jump from one domain to the other, and we actually encourage that because we think that that really teaches people. It brings a fresh perspective, and like many careers, like accountancy as well, I think coding is a very solid base for an advanced career. Why? Because it focuses on problem solving. And the basis of problem solving, the basis of understanding what customer wants makes software engineers or coders ideal candidates to work in any domain that they see fit. There needs to be a passion, there needs to be an understanding, but I think continuous learning, continuous evolution of your skill set. I think there's an excellent point about communication. I think the skill set of your traditional coder is changing as well. I think of the entire population of employees is changing. And if you master these skills of communication, of understanding what the customer wants, of understanding technology, you are well situated to make it successful in any domain.
Right, that's very insightful, Werner. Sanju, what do you want to add here?
So I think for a coder or an engineer who's starting his career, I think there is a lot of possible career choices. I mean, just because he started his career as a software engineer doesn't mean that he needs to stick to that. In my own team, I have got people who were coders, right, and who wanted to shift to human resources and recruiting. Today, at this point in time, I've got about 3 interns who are doing MBA in HR from IIT Kharagpur Business School, and they're working with us and they're loving it. And so I think first of all, if I was a software engineer, I'm going to have to figure out what is that I want to do. Working in an organization gives you a lot of exposure into different functions. You're able to see once you spend 1 or 2 years, and you're able to decide as to what you want to do. And then you have to slowly and gradually work towards it, which is develop your skills, right? Once you've identified what you want to be, develop your skills to be able to achieve that. In our organization, we have seen a lot of people who have shifted careers from from technical domain to maybe pre-sales, sales, right, and product management. So a lot of functional, functional areas where their knowledge of the domain and the product comes into play, and their skill, right? If they are very good at selling, they can use those skills, right? If they are very creative, they can be they join the marketing, and if their knowledge on the product is very, very strong, and they can actually sell the product as well, they can still be in pre-sales. So opportunities are limitless, right? I think person has to decide what he wants to do, and starts working towards it.
Right, Sanju, and since we keep on doing these panel discussions, and there are live audience who are actually very keen to know at least this aspect, that at least from the experts who are who come across speaking about these topics, it's very important for them to address this part, because the kind of innovation that's happening, I think everybody has to have that alternative choice of doing things beyond what they own, right? So that choice and decision making is very important. Rakhi, what would you add here?
So people with technical skills, or coders as we are calling them, I think one of the greatest gifts they have, and good coders, are their analytics is really nice. And if you have that, I don't think any domain really, apart from some subject matter expertise that is required, any domain is really tough. That is where we are seeing, people from technology, and that's the transition that we have seen. Like Sanju said, a lot of people move from core delivery, engineering delivery, to pre-sales and marketing, and only project management or HR. We have also seen a trend of technical people getting into non-technical entrepreneurship, where they're starting their own businesses but in the non-technical domain, right? And that is another chance that people have to change from as a career avenue available to them. I think some of the very interesting fields are coming up now in the last couple of years that we have seen. One is, of course, the social media and everything that is associated with social media. Of course, technology is the backbone of it, but it is the marketing, social media marketing is there, which is another very, very I would say lucrative area where technical people can venture into, because they have that edge if they understand how social media works in terms of marketing. Then learning the fundamental marketing concepts and applying them is something I have seen people doing. So I think in 5 years back, what we had, we have much more avenues compared to that for technology. People who are coming out of technology. I think over time, the technical and analytical skills are going to be the fundamental skills that are going to be required for any domain education, right? And I think that is not far away. I'm seeing the change happening in the schooling system also.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Ravi, I would want to know the part of, the opportunities, aspects, and the challenges and things that makes the entire coding career more exciting.
Actually, it's a pretty good leading question from what we've heard so far. If you really look at what we've heard, it's about the line fading between technology and domain. It's the ability to start learning more beyond one single domain. And the impact that we are doing today as we build more and more products is the product perspective, what we call as productization, is sort of becoming a very important stream. I think Sanju spoke about it a bit when we spoke on the first question. And of course, agile development is a given. So things are moving in that direction. So as they move in that direction, opportunities open up. Social media was a very good example. Right? Today, as late as yesterday, we did a hackathon for one of the teams, and they came up with something about a non-intrusive monitoring at an hospital. using the standard video monitoring that happens in the wards, right? So these are people who've just graduated. This is from a couple of management trainees and freshers who just graduated last year, who actually came up with this idea, did an MVP, and demonstrated it during a hackathon. So the younger generation has already started thinking very differently, and they challenge status quo. That's very, very important. They don't believe that if you go and tell them that, oh, let's go do this way, the first thing is they ask is, why not do it some other way? So that challenging mindset of the kids has actually changed the way everybody has to think. So then it becomes an opportunity for you to expose it to the customer thinks differently, and it keeps moving. But at the same time, the challenges that they would look at is they still work under a constrained environment. So the balance is what organizations have to provide. So if you look at Hexaware, we built a career framework about 5 years, 2016, we launched it, where you can switch careers across domains, across enabling functions as freely as you want. Just that you need to get qualified, be sure that you're there and you move on. And similarly, whatever is your idea, we welcome you to go ahead and not just present it within the organization, but start having a conversation with the clients directly. So you enable them, and the value that the customers see actually brings that back to Hexaware as business. So that's the disruptive way of thinking. And that is something that I've seen transform since probably about 10 to 12 years. That transformation has been slowly building in. When more of these platform-based code generation capabilities started becoming more and more, people started doing lesser code and more thinking from a domain perspective. Things slowly started, and over the last 5 years, I think it's been rapidly changing. What used to be a niche 5 years back is no more a niche, right? Even a full stack developer today is not really a niche anymore, right? It's almost expected that everybody is a full stack person. A full stack person means that you write your requirements, you talk to the customer, you understand it, you do your coding, you do your testing, and you get it ready for taking it back to your client, getting it approved and moved. So you do an entire life cycle. Earlier, each of this was a different function. So that is how things are changing. Most of the people understand that this is changing, and they've started providing the opportunities. Yes, there are the traditional pushes that will happen. There are deadlines that will continue to push every one of us. But at the same time, I think the acceptance has also started becoming a lot. So it's a balance that is slowly tilting towards towards overcoming some of the challenges, and opportunities are opening.
Right, Ravi. And I think, from the perspective of what's happening outside the world, and the kind of approach that the developers need right now has become more holistic, right? They have to have that vision as the business models, as we spoke right earlier. Ranjana, what would you want to add here?
Yes, very rightly said by Ravi that the opportunities are ample, right? Starting from the colleges, I think there are ample opportunities right now for the people from the technology background, and also as Rakhi mentioned that because they come with a very, very good analytical skills, for them there are opportunities in almost every area or domain of work. Right from if you name it, like a customer success manager to a business development person to somebody as a product manager to moving to an HR or a talent acquisition. And I think we as ATTRA, as a boutique organization, we have definitely given, and I have seen so many examples where people have, after 10 years of into technology domain, moved into being the L&D head, moved into being managing projects of starting new offices, entirely taking over operations as a role. So those kind of opportunities are ample, and I think again the basis is how much you understand business, how much passionate you are again for moving into from one role to another, and how much you owe to your own career in terms of picking up these skills. So I think the opportunities are ample, and I think it's more with the automation picking up so much across the world in every sphere of work, automation picking up, and that gives us more an opportunity on the technology side.
Thank you for that, Ranjana. With this, I would want Werner to add his inputs here. What makes coding exciting, Werner? What do you think?
Thank you. That's some great answers there, and I would not want to repeat them. So I would take it down a bit of a different route. I think some of the challenges is how the environment for coders has changed in the past 18 months. So your traditional office setup, your traditional team setup, getting together, agile boards, scrum meetings, a lot of this has changed as many people are at home. So I think part of the challenges is adapting to this new environment. At TomTom, we are very actively working on a program about how we're going to interact, how we're going to collaborate, how we're going to focus our work in a post-pandemic world. And it's certainly not going to be everybody back to the office 5 days a week. So we need to teach our people, we need to upskill them, we need to give them the training. And these are all challenges that organizations face. We know that coding is the backbone of many industries today and will continue to be so. So some of the benefits that we see as well is the way that technology is advancing. If I talk about TomTom again, we focus a lot of our work on navigation, on driver satisfaction, on autonomous driving. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a vehicle driving on its own was just a story, somewhere in a science fiction novel, and now this is reality. And we might be navigating today on roads. Tomorrow we might be navigating through space. So there's certainly a lot of benefits and a lot of things to look forward to, but we need to adapt to our new surroundings as well, and continue to be effective and continue to collaborate and have as much output as we can with the resources that we have.
Interesting, Werner. Sanju, your inputs here, and give us a different perspective of how it is exciting for coders as a career, and with the technology innovations happening all around, what other things is more exciting for them?
We were all talking about how technology landscape is changing, and I think that is the baseline for how lives as a software programmer has changed. For example, today your release cycles have become shorter. Right? You say 2-week sprints. I mean, that was not something that I think Ravi has been here, has worked in this field for many, long years. So you would say, past when I started my career, we used to have maybe a release in 3 months' time. But today, engineers are releasing products and shipping it out in about 2 weeks' time. And that's when we say, when we started with Agile methodology, I think that's one of the fundamental shifts that happened in a life for a software engineer. And then I think we spoke about full stack development also, right? Where we're saying that a developer doesn't have, needs to actually know the front end and back end as well. And recently we're changing we're experiencing the shift for QA engineers as well. Right? Today, developers are expected to do their own testing, right? So there are roles like software development engineer and test that have emerged and evolved. What does that mean for a software tester that started their career 15-20 years back? They would have to make themselves more relevant, right? And I think it's the mindset that they need to. It's a difference in the mindset that is coming together, and people will have to build skills, look at different ways. Softwares are getting developed in many different, different ways than the way it used to happen in the past, which provides people an opportunity to do things differently. For example, users of open source software has been in rise forever, I think. So you're looking a lot in using open source softwares and all, and I think that's providing a lot of new tech opportunities to software engineers and coders to figure out and find out and do innovation in their own work.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Sanju. Ranjana and Rakhi, do you want to add perspective here, a little bit from your organization, angle?
Sure. So one of the very interesting work that I do is what Zinnov does is Zinnov helps organizations set up their center of excellence in India. And because of that nature of work, I get to interact with numerous business heads, CEOs, CTOs who want to set up, their companies in India, their centers in India, their design or analytics centers is what we are seeing. and because of that, I get the advantage of understanding what is motivating them to do that, and why is India and Indian talent so relevant to them, right? I think one of the very and as a culture, we have been a very adaptive culture. We are very flexible, and I think we have seen this even across all the professions, and that is where they believe that an Indian technologist, an Indian coder, an Indian programmer is much more flexible to adapt new technologies, to quick learn and implement these technologies. A lot of companies have special reward and recognition for people who have actually learned something new and implemented. I think Sanju made two very important points. One is the time, right? The time scale of, earlier, we used to see a impactful industrial change coming in a decade. It came down to 5 years, and now I think it is 2.5 years. And I'm sure by 2023 we will be somewhere like a 1 year, 18 months kind of an industrial technology change, and it's going to keep going short. In this case, if that is the case, then it is very important for any programmer to have a roadmap for themselves. A roadmap of technology, I would say improvement, add, upgrade, upscale, whatever you want to call it, right? But that roadmap for any programmer should be there. So I think time is one thing, and another very important point was that we all spoke about is the vanishing lines between there is nothing called as specialization, but still specialization is going to be there. I know it's a little confusing when we hear that, but if you see areas like IoT, areas like robotics, AI, ML, even for that matter data science, are going to need understanding of different not just programming, but it's going to need the understanding of how appliances work, how cloud works, and how virtual machines work, and all of it. And that kind of an understanding is always going to give an edge to the coder, who somebody who goes with that understanding and maturity, and somebody who does not. We will see a very obvious difference between their career levels, right? And I think that is why coding is so exciting now, because coding is like salt to the industry currently, right? Nothing is going to taste good without a good code. So yeah, coders are salt particles, and they are going to add all the zinc and taste.
I really like that line, Rakhi, that they are the salt in the kind of taste makers of the entire blend that is created and offered by various organizations. Ranjana, I would like you also to add in something here, please.
Sure. I think the key to survive technology disruption is being agile. How agile a person is, and how flexible in terms of picking up or taking up upskilling. So most of the organizations right now are working towards it, and I think from the organization perspective, I can say that we do a lot of work on that area. Also from the hiring perspective, also from the talent acquisition perspective, we do a lot of work on how can actually we can look at changing careers of people right from the very start. So we do hire a lot of people who come from operations background, so who work in the BPO, KPO kind of a background, and they do understand, and because we are a cards and payments company, particularly work on that domain, so we pick up a lot of people who work on the banking BPO side, hire them, train them on technology side, and put them on automation testing kind of a requirement. So that's what we are doing our bit in terms of seeing that how we can actually upgrade people, how we can actually upskill people. And also with the talent war being so high, I think that's one of the things that we doing in terms of bringing about more people on the technology side. So that is one of the examples is we do hire a lot of campus graduates, and then we train them on the niche skills. So we do have a lot of skills that we hire on the cards side. So, right, the people coming on the card specialist, payment specialist kind of a role. So, we do hire a lot of graduates who come with that kind of a skills like problem solving, skills like collaborating with the team, who has the gene to learn more and more. So, we hire them and we train them to be supporting businesses, talking to them, talking to the customer, being the front end to the customer. So I think those are the bets that we are doing as an organization in terms of making sure that there is upgrade in the career of the people and there is a movement from one domain to another. And I think that's a continuous thing, but from every other phase of the I think campus and the corporate life cycle that we are also trying to do a bit from our side.
Right, and Ranjana, this actually brings me to a very pertinent question. That is the next one that I have for all of you. That how to survive technology disruption. It's a major thing that has happened at least past couple of years, and how should techies stay relevant in their careers? So Sanju, I would like to start from you.
Okay, so I think we tried to cover it a little bit in our previous question. Staying relevant means you got to, for technology folks, it means that since the technology landscape is changing, it means that you've got to upgrade yourself a lot. Okay, because things are evolving so fast. I think from a monolithic architecture, about 2 years back there were developments happening, and I think 2-3 years back we said we want to hire microservices. We were finding it very difficult to do that. Now there is plenty of people who do the same work. I think every other software is using microservices architecture. So what I'm saying is technology is changing very fast. The way we're looking at roles are also changing. I was talking to you about QA engineers. I think QA as a function is going through a little bit of difficult times because now developers are expected to do testing, right? So that's when people started asking questions: do we need QA as a separate function, right? And therefore a lot of QA managers found it difficult, saying that I'm a QA manager, I want to be an engineering manager. Can I shift roles, right? So I think staying relevant means that you got to be, you will have to retrain yourself, right? With automation happening, you can't be a manual tester. You have to be an automation tester. With full stack development happening, you will have to build yourself such that you're able to work on back end and front end both, right? And that is the change and shift in the mindset.
Thank you, Sanju. That's very insightful. Ravi, we'll move to you.
Yeah, I think as Sanju said, we have discussed many of the points through the through the last few minutes. But very important is being abreast, knowing what is happening in that industry, and more than that, accepting that there is change. Right? A lot of people take time to learn because they still believe that change is a slow process. In the IT industry, it is no more a slow process. Things change. Versions come out every quarter. Every single quarter there is a major release that comes out, and there's something new that comes out in every release. It's no more I had 30 defects that came out, I'm pushing a patch for that release, and that is the next release. No, new functionality, new way of thinking, and everything is targeted towards better performance, and they just keep focusing on building something which is new and which is relevant. So accepting that there is change, which means that you'll have to be fungible. Today, if your technology is no more relevant, the domain in which you're working has become saturated, you need to pick up something and keep moving. Exactly to Sanju's point on QA. Yes, QA, when the testers wanted to become SDATs or the equivalent of full stack, they needed to learn a little bit of backend. A lot of people said, oh, will I be able to do it? The people who actually did started becoming better on SDAT, and over the last 4 or 5 years, they would have learned a little bit of technology, which in turn will allow them to move into a pure play technology role. So take what comes, do the role, and careers are not limited to technology. If you invest in picking up the domain in which you're working, you can actually move on to a domain-based career also. You don't have to stick to technology, you don't have to stick to coding. So it's all about staying relevant to the current trends. So read up trends, do a lot of research. There is enough and more of research that is done and which can actually push alerts to you, which keep telling you what is happening on a week-on-week basis, month-on-month basis, sector by sector. So That's really what you need. Staying relevant is the only way is learning, picking up, and ready to adapt. Mindset change is if you had asked this of 15 years back and you told anybody who had already worked for 15 years in a particular technology and told them to change, they would have said, no, this technology is going to stay. Nobody is going to touch mainframes will never go. Right? All that has gone. Yeah, mainframes are needed for a few very, very large back-end transactions, not because they are needed, but because we are afraid to go and make the change. Because the quantum of testing in a back-end banking industry, or for that matter, airline routing industry still runs on the same old engine that was built, I don't even know when, like 30 years, 40 years back. It still runs on that. Your green monitors for that are still available and they are still relevant. That's because nobody wants to touch it. That's the reason why they are relevant. But otherwise, everything else has changed. So, only piece of advice is, if you want to stay relevant, keep learning. There is no choice.
Thank you, Ravi. Ranjana, maybe if you could just add one or two advice or suggestions that you think will be right to stay relevant.
So as I mentioned, I think previously there is, and what Ravi told is very, very true, is how open are we to learning, how much an individual is to pick up and understand what's happening around. And also, I think one of the biggest thing is understand the domain that person is working on. So I can tell you from my experience that we really look for people coming from a particular domain. So I think domain expertise is one of the big things that one can pick up apart from technology. So technology, definitely you keep moving from one domain to another in terms of functional, but being a functional expert is definitely something which the industry is looking for more and more people. So I think we should be open to learning the domain that we are working on, and keep ourselves open to what's happening around us, and definitely being agile. So I think those are the things that come from my side.
Thank you, Ranjana. Werner, what would you like to add here?
I think a lot has been said, so I won't repeat that. But I think something that comes from the discussion is the speed of change and the speed of new technology being developed. A couple of years back, AI ML was a real niche technology. Now it's almost it's been commoditized. It's the same with Internet of Things. Everybody's expected to know this, and you need to decide yourself whether you want to move ahead with it. There's nothing wrong with being a domain expert and sticking with the same technology. Like Ravi said, there is mainframe technologies might not be relevant anymore, but it's certainly not obsolete. And some of these systems are built on years and years and years of backbone. At TomTom, we deal with the same thing. We constantly need to reinvent the way that we build the map. But you can't just rip out what you've built over the last 30 years and start again, because it has consequences. So there's always a need, and there's always a way to grow. I think you need to be wary of the hype as well, which I've seen a lot. Gartner's hype curve is a great thing. You should see what's important. You should do your own research. Software engineers and techies are intelligent people, and you should continuously use the resources that we have available. There's never been so much information available. I personally use YouTube a lot in order to stay relevant, because it's small, it's bite-sized, and there's nothing that you cannot find.
Right, I think very, very interesting point made, Werner. The utilization of resources that's available is an important aspect for everyone. I feel it's not just the techies, but everyone. Rakhi, what would you want to add here?
Oh, I think all have said that it's just learning. If we go back to our childhood, there's one saying that stagnated water will always gather mass. And it's so true, because you just can't stop. The moment you stop, you become irrelevant. You have to learn, you have to upgrade, and the speed of that is the demand to change. The demand to upgrade is just becoming faster and faster in the industry. For example, like I was back in 2020 early, I think the cloud people that we were planning to hire were like, I could count them. There were 2-digit people, right, that we wanted to hire. And by the end or the beginning of 2021, so I'm talking about something like a 12, 14 months timeline, we are already looking at a 3-digit number demand, and some change and digitization changes that people expected to implement over the next 3 years suddenly became 6 months timeline due to the pandemic, right? How do you remain relevant with this speed? How is the question? And I think both Ravi and Werner said very important. One is learning, and second is use your resources to the best, because the speed is going to matter. I think apart from upgrading, there is one more very, very important skill that people need, that is going to help them, is the problem solving skills, right? So thinking beyond your work framework to go and solve problems, business problems, is, and I never thought this could be such a hard to find skill, trust me. So how do you approach, how do you solve and business problems to make your to benefit yourself, that is your organization and your clients? That is the most important skill that is going to be is required right now, because the typical hierarchy that we used to think about, that problems are to be solved by the program and project managers, and I'm just going to code what comes to me, that is gone. That culture is dissolving very rapidly.
Thank you so much. So with this, I think it's time for us to conclude the panel. And I would request you to give me closing remarks and wish our finalists all the best for the final results, with 2 thumbs up to everyone. So once everybody's done with the closing remarks, I think we can have a thumbs up and wishing all our participants good luck, right? So maybe we can start with you, Ranjana. Yes, let's begin.
I think the closing remarks from my end is that I think coding remains, as Rakhi mentioned, the tastemakers. The coders will remain as tastemakers, and I think maybe sometime down the line it will be the basis of our education system, as well as people look at it to as a minimum or basic education to begin any career with. But definitely we need specialized people as well there. So there is enough opportunities in coding. There is enough challenges, definitely, but I think a couple of skills, as Rakhi has been mentioning, problem solving skills, being resourceful, being having a great communication skill, and somebody who is a team player can always bank on these skills and look at different careers for him or herself in the technology side or outside the technology as he or she grows in her career. So there is ample and there is so much to do for oneself in the technology side.
Thank you. Rakhi, your closing remarks, please.
I think these are the most exciting times for people in technology. They should make the most of it. That is one. And second is, we are going to see the younger generation take over very, very fast, right? In mostly in everything, but so much more in technology. So it is very important that all of us, who have matured in their careers a little bit, and who have not yet reached their final destination in terms of careers, should give very, very serious thought about how you should have a roadmap for yourself. You should absolutely have plans. You should have a clear roadmap, and you should do a lot of research on what is going to be the next thing in the industry, and start upgrading yourself now. It is like you have to be prepared. You can't be reactive. There has to be a lot of proactive approach.
Thank you. Sanju?
So I think there are a lot of opportunities for coders to venture into different domains or create an alternative career within their own organization, because every organization is providing that opportunity. But for somebody who would love to do coding, I think it is important that they stay relevant, because technology is changing. The speed at which it is changing is moving very fast. So to be able to do that, they need to learn and keep learning. just the way right now today online learning has become very, very popular, because that's the way people are doing training inside in the organization as well. And there are a lot of other platforms that are offering that. So, making use of that and, making themselves relevant is very important. Third most important thing that I feel is that the business environment is becoming very, very complex, right? And personally, I think for somebody to grow in their career, they should be able to, manage this complexity and should build up those skills to thrive in such a complex environment. This will be my few advices to people in the coding fraternity right now.
Thank you so much, Sanju. Werner?
Yes, I think a lot has been said. I think for me the most important aspect to remain relevant in this industry is to broaden your skill set, not just necessarily your technical skills, but all kind of skill sets regarding communication, regarding collaboration, regarding problem solving. You need a full gambit of skills in order to be successful in this industry. It's no longer it's no longer a individual sport. Coding and collaboration is certainly a team sport, and these skills needs to be managed, they need to be honed, and they need to be practiced in order to get better at that. But I think, as the panel said, this is a very exciting time for being in the coding or the software engineering domain. There's certainly ample opportunities which will not dissipate as far as I'm concerned. And if you have the necessary skills in your toolkit, like talking about, I think you're well on your way to success.
Thank you, Werner. Ravi?
Well, a lot has been said by the panel. So all that I would like to add is hiring today is no more based on your technology skills, right? From the campuses through the mid-management, all the way through to the top management. People analyze your capability to adopt, to your capability to quickly learn, change your way of life based on the speed at which the world around you is changing. So if you want to be relevant, you'll have to understand that just having one technical skill or being an expert in 5 different programming languages is just not enough. So put everything together, go broaden your skill sets, broaden your domain capabilities, broaden your technology capabilities. And if you keep doing that, and if you're ready to adopt, then you definitely have an exciting career ahead of you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. So, audience, I think learning is the most critical takeaway that we'll have, we have from this discussion. And I think everybody agrees that to stay relevant, learning and upskilling is the only thing that you'll have to do now and going forward as well. Because I had an amazing time, with this, during this conversation, and thank you for sharing some insightful, elements for our developers, programmers, and coders, and all the techies, apparently. Can we have that all the best and good luck wishing from all of you? Can I have that 2 thumbs up from each one of you, please?
All the very best.
Let's wish all of you. Thank you so much. Thanks for this. Audience, thank you for listening to us. Hope this was fruitful to you. Have an amazing evening. Stay tuned for the results. Thank you so much.